Hello friends, welcome back to my channel Only Bio. Presenting up a sort of a revision and the important points from the chapter Skeleton and Locomotion. So in this series, I'm presenting up the important points from 141 to 160. Hope you have been following the earlier series as well. Point number 141. Ligaments appear as crisscross bands that attach the bone to the bone and help to stabilize the joints. For example, the anterior cruciate ligament, that is in simple words called as ACL, attaches the thigh bone to the shin bone, stabilizing the knee joint. Next, tendons located at each end of a muscle attach the muscle to the bone. Tendons are found throughout the body from the head and neck all the way down to the feet. The Achilles tendon is the largest tendon in the body. It attaches the calf muscle to the heel bone. The rotator cuff tendons help your shoulder rotate forward and backward. Next, the knee joint has four major ligaments, one on each side of the knee and two that run diagonally across the front and back of the kneecap. These ligaments help to stabilize the knee and keep it from moving too far to the left or right, forward or backward. Point number 144. Tetany is a condition due to low blood calcium, that is hypocalcemia, due to disorders of the thyroid gland which releases the hormone calcitonin. Calcitonin is responsible to regulate the calcium levels in the blood. There is low level of calcium ions in the fluid. Due to low levels of ionic calcium, there is an increase in the frequency of the action potential. There is continuous contraction of the muscles, which is known as spasm. This condition is characterized by spasms of the hands and the feet, cramps, spasm of the larynx, and overactive neurological reflexes. Next, calcium ions play an important role in muscle contraction by creating interactions between the proteins myosin and actin. The calcium ions bind to the C component of the actin filament, which exposes the binding site for the myosin head to bind to in order to stimulate a muscle contraction. Next, parathyroid glands located in the region of the neck release the hormone parathormone, which maintains the calcium concentration in the blood. Friends, here you have to remember that both thyroid and parathyroid glands collectively maintain the calcium level in the blood. I think you might have done this in the chapter hormonal coordination, so it will be easier for you to understand this point. In order to increase the concentration, it mobilizes the calcium stored in the mineralized bone by stimulating the osteoclastic activity. This works by reducing the loss of calcium ions in the kidney and by increasing the reabsorption of the ions into the small intestine. Next, when calcium ion levels are persistently low, the constant activity of parathyroid glands causes them to swell, and this swelling is called parathyroid hyperplasia. Additionally, an oversecretion of parathormone brings about excessive damage to the bone and a surplus of calcium in the blood. Next, during muscle contraction, high concentrations of calcium are required to displace troponin and reveal the active site at which myosin binds to for the power stroke. Calcium is released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum through the calcium ion channels when the membrane of the T-tubular system is excited. It binds to troponin C, causing it to conform, hence permitting the myosin head to latch into the actin filament, onsetting the muscle contraction. Point number 148. All muscle fibers use calcium as their main regulatory and signaling molecule. Therefore, contractile properties of the muscle fibers are dependent on the variable expression of the proteins involved in calcium signaling and handling. Next, in 1882, Ringer found that the isolated frog heart contracted when incubated in a solution prepared with London tap water, but not in one prepared with distilled water. This led to the very important discovery that the ability of the heart muscle to contract depends on the presence of calcium in the external solution. Indeed, it has been demonstrated that the function of all muscle types is controlled by calcium as a second messenger. Next, red muscle fibers are dark red due to the presence of myoglobin. They have large amount of mitochondria, whereas the white muscle fibers have low amount of mitochondria and myoglobin. Point number 151. Red muscle fibers have thin fibers which allows them to contract slowly, whereas white muscle fibers have thick fibers which make them to contract fast. Point number 152. Red muscle fibers are also called type 1 muscles or slow twitch muscles, whereas white muscle fibers are called type 2 muscles or fast twitch muscles. Red muscle fibers are highly resistant to fatigue, whereas white muscles can easily get fatigued. Red muscles obtain energy from aerobic metabolism, whereas white muscle fibers obtain energy from anaerobic metabolism. Red muscle fibers have slow conduction due to low myosin ATPase activity, whereas white muscle fibers have fast conduction due to high myosin ATPase activity. Point number 153. Wishbone of the birds is derived from the pectoral girdle. Wishbone, also called as the bone of merry thought or furcular bone or furculum, is a forked bone found in some birds and dinosaurs. Wishbone is formed by the fusion of two clavicles. Next, control by recruitment in a muscle refers to the regulation of tension by variation in the number of motor units that are active. Next, calsequestrin is a high-capacity calcium-binding protein found in the sarcoplasmic reticulum of cardiac and skeletal muscle. Calsequestrin is a calcium-binding protein that acts as a calcium buffer within the sarcoplasmic reticulum. The protein helps hold calcium in the cisterna of the sarcoplasmic reticulum after a muscle contraction, even though the concentration of calcium in the sarcoplasmic reticulum is much higher than in the cytosol. It also helps the sarcoplasmic reticulum to store an extraordinarily high amount of calcium ions. Each molecule of calsequestrin can bind to 18 to 50 calcium ions. Point number 156. In 1847, Ludwig invented the kymograph, a cylindrical drum used to record the muscular motion, changes in the blood pressure, and other physiological phenomena. Next, our spine has over 120 muscles in it. This is why our spine is so flexible and why it allows us to use it in so many different ways. Next, baby spines begin developing just 2 months after conception. The spine is the first bone to start to grow when we are in the womb. Next, the spine is extremely flexible. It can bend far enough back to make two-thirds of a circle. Point number 160. Most of the back pain experienced is in the lower back. This is because the lower back is constantly twisting and stretching. Some scientists believe that back pain is due to evolution and it is not preventable in many ways. Friends, thank you so much for being with me. Hope you're following the entire series.